You know, on the pain game, I do like to keep it real, right? If fighters fuck up in and out of the ring, I point it out and I say it how it is. But the last thing I want to do is always be a negative guy or always come down too hard on fighters. You know, these are people at the end of the day. And it is very important that we do the other side of that on this channel, in my opinion, which is build fighters up. Give them credit when they've done something remarkable. And that's what this video is about today, because Francis Ngannou, what a story that man has had in and out of the ring. I interviewed this guy a few years back, and just hearing about his upbringing and how hard it was coming from Africa, making it all the way to the UFC, just getting in the UFC was a movie-like story, let alone becoming world champion, let alone taking on the president of the UFC and Dana White and having this big argument and being the one man to fight out his contract and to manage to then go into boxing and make millions of pounds. And he sets up a fight that seems crazy against Tyson Fury, of all people, the heavyweight champion of the world. Who makes their boxing debut against the heavyweight champion of the world? Francis Ngannou. And by God, he dropped the Gypsy King. It was one of the greatest moments in combat sports history. No, he didn't get the win, and in fact, he did set up a fight against Anthony Joshua where the levels in the game were exposed. But he took it like a man, and he came back to the fight game that made him, the MMA game. But on the way to that, he experienced one of the worst tragedies a human can ever go through, and that's the loss of a beautiful little baby boy in his son Kobe. God only knows, after everything Francis has been through, what it was like for him to try and put the pieces back together in his life. Most people wouldn't want to continue anything after a loss like that, let alone continue fighting the toughest bastards in the world. But most people are Francis Ngannou, and he set up a fight against Hernan Ferreira, who was bigger than him. I think he's younger than him. And like, how can you be bigger than Francis Ngannou, for Christ's sakes? He's massive, this man. John Jones and Conor McGregor both picked Ngannou to lose this fight. But again, Francis Ngannou is not most people. He comes back with a win and dedicates it to his son Kobe. Wow. That is what the fight game is about. It's not just about the technique and the fights that we watch. It's about the stories. And I don't know if anyone has a better story than Francis Ngannou. That's the video right there. That's it. That's it. I don't know how much more to say, man. Like, I've met so many fighters on my journey in interviewing them. I've been so fortunate to interview several world champions, but there's not anyone who stands out more than him. So it's 2.5 years since he last had an MMA fight, and that was against Cyril Gane, where his knees looked like they were finished. He's had massive surgery since then as well, and he's 38. Then he takes all this time out to learn how to box, and now he's got to go back into the cage and figure that out all again. And as you can see here, this big lad, Ferreira, 85-inch reach, the biggest in all of fighting, I'm pretty sure. 6'8", 260 pounds, just an absolute animal, this man. And Francis fought this fight, despite not being in there for a while, with good patience. That is something that we've seen later in his career. The more he believed in himself as a champion, the less he felt the need to rush things. He has confidence in his ability to get the job done. Both landing some decent leg kicks here. And that takedown was so well timed, because he does it as Ferreira is throwing punches. He's offset. He's not ready for defending that takedown at all. It was a good game plan from him, right? Like, obviously on the feet, it's 50-50. But we've seen later in Ngannou's career, training at Extreme Couture, known for their wrestling. Obviously, Couture himself, and I think he was an Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler. So you know he knows how to fucking wrestle. And that was the difference maker against Cyril Gane. Now, initially, Ferreira throws up this triangle here. It was a bit touch and go for a second. I did wonder. But when, you know, he was struggling with the foot in the cage, you knew he didn't have it locked in entirely. And Ngannou did well here just to break his head free and get a bit of space and start raining down that ground and pound. And look, no one hits harder than Francis Ngannou, I don't think, in the whole of fighting. But my God, being on the ground like this and having that shot. Someone said he was the first fighter to get finished in doggy style, this guy. Because Francis is just in complete control of this fight. And it's got to be demoralizing for Ferreira, because he was a real monster looking, you know, up and coming fighter, and he's just demolished in the ground and pound here. Francis raining down hell. Jesus, flattens him out. What an emotional feeling that must have been for Francis Ngannou. For me, as a fan of Francis, I've been a fan of him for years, this was the most important win of them all for me, because it was for his son. And you can see the emotion coming out of him almost immediately as they're reading his name. And you know what? That right there, that's resilience. When you come back from everything and you keep on fucking winning, that's the true test of a man's character, that. And it does beg the question, this, where the fuck does Francis Ngannou sit in the greatest heavyweight of all time in MMA talk? I mean, where is he? Because he's got a claim. There's no doubt he's got a claim. He's still currently the lineal champion of the UFC. No one beat him. He walked out as the champion. And you look at the way he's just destroyed that mountain of a man in Ferreira that people will say, oh, who cares? He's not a UFC fighter. That guy is a fucking serious problem. They call him El Problemo for a reason, I think. He's fucking huge. And Francis made him look easy work there. You look at his resume. All right, everyone previously said Stipe Miocic, greatest heavyweight of all time. Well, he beat Stipe, smashed him to bits, convincingly. All right, Stipe did have a win over against him, but that win, the last win, the more defining win, the more dominant win, is the one that matters. So you're beating Stipe. You know, you quickly look at his resume. Blades, Orlovsky, Overeem, Velasquez, Dos Santos, Rosenstrike, Miocic, gone. And I think this adds a lot of weight to his claim as the greatest heavyweight of all time. You went in there on your boxing debut and dropped Tyson Fury and went to a close decision with him. And you've got Anthony Joshua on your resume. All right, Joshua did smoke him. But still, you could really argue, like, having those boxing fights. Could anyone else have done that in terms of what he did to Fury? Could anyone else in MMA heavyweight history have hung in there with Fury like that? I don't fucking know, like. I doubt it. Maybe Aspinall. Aspinall's the only one with the hand speed, right, and the power. I don't know anyone else who could have done that. Don't even talk about John Jones, because John Jones, his hands aren't even worth talking about. That's the weakest part of his game, in my opinion. He's never had power in his hands. We're talking about a freak of a heavyweight in Francis Ngannou. And while people can debate whether he's the greatest heavyweight of all time, he's got a fucking claim. I don't know if there's anyone with a better resume than that. And the fact that he crossed over into boxing, it puts him right up there as someone who did things that other people never did. It's a lot of chat. There's not a lot of backing it up. He backed it up. And you know, it is sad that we don't really have an answer towards Aspinall and Ngannou and Jones and who is the king of those three out of this generation. But, you know, you can't blame Aspinall and you can't blame Ngannou. Ngannou was in the UFC while John Jones took time out because he needed, quote unquote, 3 years to gain weight. He was right there. And Jones only came back as Ngannou was on his way out the fucking door. So that ain't his fault. Aspinall's ready to fight John Jones right now. John Jones fucking terrified, right? We all know it. So I don't blame either of those two. But what they both have that John Jones doesn't is a full resume and a legacy at heavyweight. So for this era, it's between Aspinall and Ngannou. I don't even fucking entertain Jones, because what are you doing? You fought Cyril Gane, who can't take a fucking takedown to save his life. And now you're going to fight Stipe Miocic, who hasn't fought since 4 years ago when Ngannou flatlined him. What are we doing? So, you know, I'm not interested. Until he's ready to step in there with Aspinall, he's not in the conversation for me. A great light heavyweight legacy, don't get me wrong, but he's done fuck all at heavyweight that's even worth talking about. And until he wants to change that, you're not in the chat, mate. In terms of what this means for Francis as a win, I think this is just so much bigger than fighting. I think this is about his son much more than that. And you could tell his interview afterwards, wow, it was so powerful, because really what this was about was him saying, this is for you, to Kobe, you know. Few things have really touched me in fighting the way him losing his son hit me. Like, I remember I just couldn't help but cry at the time, just reading the social media post from Francis, the way he's so beautifully worded how much his son meant to him and how much pain he was in. And to see a great man like that just let it all out, I mean, fucking hell, what that must have meant to him to get that win and to just be able to go, I did this for you, son. What other win can compare to that moment? Because it's about him letting everyone know, my son's still alive right now. I'm keeping him alive with this moment, with these words that I'm dedicating this to him for. And for that reason, I was just so fucking delighted that he won this fight. This is the most important one, because now he can sleep a bit better at night, I assume. You need that moment to sort of give back to your son when the spotlight is on you, to direct all of that adulation that everyone's giving him, go, yeah, but you need to understand that I did this for him. I can empathise with that a little bit in little moments where I've been able to dedicate moments to my mother. And I can only imagine, you know, by comparison, what this must have felt for him only months after losing his son. Where on earth did this man get the strength to get up every morning and to still go and train when other people, they wouldn't have wanted to get out their bed. They wouldn't have wanted to even do anything. They wouldn't have wanted to live. That's what a real hero this man is. So yeah, I hope he can find a little bit more peace from that moment, to just know that he did a great thing for his boy, and he's a great dad for that. Bloody hell, what a dad that is, right? And I know he's got another kid, and I know that must have helped him carry on, but I hope people around him are telling him, you're a great dad, you. And in terms of what's next for Francis, it's hard to say because the PFL, they're just getting warmed up, right? There's a long way for them to go, and I'll come on to them in a minute, but I think that he's just dethroned their biggest, best heavyweight. Like, he's proven already, I'm the king. Yeah. That's it. I feel like he could go back to boxing and there's more exciting moments for him to be having there. I don't know how good of a boxer he is because I feel like the truth is somewhere between the Fury and AJ fight. Like, we don't know. But a fight with him and Deontay Wilder, for example, I've got no doubt people would want to watch that. Even if people are saying, oh, Wilder this, he's finished. Da, da, da. Imagine that as maybe a main event or a co-main event on a big event. That would be massive. And look, he could make a shitload more money. And if he wins that, then fuck knows, he might end up getting another fight against Fury. I mean, life is exciting now for Francis Ngannou fans. We really have a lot to be excited about. And I just think boxing, given the lack of competition in the PFL, is the way for him to go and have a couple of more fights before riding off into the sunset. Now, the problem with that, if you're the PFL, is that you need Francis in there, in the cage, because he's the only fighter who gets eyeballs on your product. Even if he is in there with lesser competition, just get him in there with them, have him smash them, and get eyeballs on them, and try and build stars on the undercard underneath that. Because when I look at the PFL, there's just a lot of work needed, man. And I say that with respect, right? I like this company a lot. They're great people, and I'm rooting for them because I want as much competition in the fight game for us fans as humanly possible. But when you look at the YouTube views are a real good indicator of how a company's doing in this level. And you look at a Francis Ngannou's interview, 800,000. His highlight video, 315,000. Then you look at the week before, like they do a fight week vlog, for example, 20K, then 5K, 17K, 15K, 7K, 11K. They're not smashing it right now. And honestly, I think there's just so much confusion for the fans to kind of unpack as to what the direction of this company is. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. And I don't know what the long-term game is. And I think that really should have just answered itself immediately for all fans, right? It's a lot clearer when I look at BKFC, for example, or even a Misfits, for example. You could just see the directions of each company so clear. And the PFL, it feels directionless, and I think that is something that they need to solve immediately while they have a star like Francis Ngannou on their books, because how long have we got left of Francis's career? He's 38. You need to do as much as you can with a fighter like that as quick as you can, and you need to mobilize, and I'm not sure that's happening. But the best thing for the PFL about that night was their star man won, right? They paid a lot of money to get him. They've got him. He smashed it. He did his part. Now they've got to do this. But it's great to see Francis Ngannou end the year on a high after everything he's been through. I am so delighted for him. It was the icing on the cake that Conor McGregor bet against him on his little audio note where he goes, this is a rootless game and I'm a rootless man. Just to say that he proved him wrong as well is even better. But let me know in the comments below who you want to see Francis Ngannou fight next. I'm really interested to know who you want to see him in there with. Also, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.